You ever buy a place thinking you're signing up for peace and quiet, then find out you accidentally declared war on a small suburban army? Yeah, that's me. I moved up here for silence, wound up living through the kind of HOA nightmare that, honestly, if you wrote in a script, people would laugh you out of the room. I mean, off-grid, off HOA, off everybody's radar. Or so I thought. First day I set foot on my 4.7 acres in central Utah, I was sure I'd found the sweet spot. Long, low house from the late 70s, dark cedar, porch that sounded like a haunted ship, valley view to die for. The whole setup said, nobody's business but yours. I'd done my time wrangling property law for the feds, 15 years, give or take, and after consulting on enough lawsuits to pickle your soul, I wanted trees, not trouble. I wanted quiet, not complaints. No HOA. The seller made that real clear. The paperwork even brighter. The land, technically, was carved out from the subdivision below, but grandfathered out of their rules. I was like the last outpost above enemy lines, watching over a field of step-forward lawns. The first week was paradise. Pine sap under my nails, coffee on the porch with the sunrise, drone surveys over the tree line, just me, a shovel, and not a single neighbor in sight. I replanted the north slope, put in a county-approved privacy fence, named every deer that wandered by. I'm telling you, I could feel my blood pressure dropping every time the wind hit those pines. But peace, apparently, is a temporary condition. It was a Tuesday. I was laying gravel by the gate when the trouble rolled up in a silver SUV, windows tinted, purse dog in the back. Out steps this woman, perfect helmet of blonde hair, sunglasses that probably cost more than my mortgage. She didn't so much greet me as announce herself. Karen Grayson, HOA president, Summit Hills. I'm not in your HOA, I said before she could get going. Didn't faze her a bit. Just wanted to be neighborly, she said, but the way she said it made my skin crawl. Right there in the gravel, she starts quizzing me about the fence. Too high, too fortress-wide. Whether I might consider painting the house something more cohesive with the community palette. I told her I'd pass. She gave this laugh, brittle as glass, handed me an envelope, and invited me to a neighbor mixer. I'd sooner eat nails than attend. I tossed her welcome packet in a drawer. I figured, let them waste their printer ink, my property, my rules. Next morning, HOA flyer taped to my fence. Friendly reminder. Residents are encouraged to maintain neighborhood aesthetics. Residents. As if a sticker made it real. I laughed. I really did. That lasted right up until the surveillance started. Suddenly, there's a parade of SUVs creeping past, sedan at the base of my drive. Neighbors in branded vests snapping photos of my house. My trees me like I'm Bigfoot with a lawnmower. By Friday, I'd installed cameras, spotlights, and a new welded steel gate. That night, another envelope. No signature, just perfect cursive. We strive for harmony in Summit Hills. Refusing to participate only creates division. Be advised, continued non-compliance may result in formal action. I burned it right there in my fire pit. Blue flame, hint of perfume, felt like a hex. 10 days in, the air goes dead quiet. No birds, no wind, just the kind of silence you only get before a storm. There it is, a laminated envelope zip-tied to my front gate. Notice of immediate vacating order. 3 hours to clear out or face emergency corrective measures. Not from the law. From the HOA. I called Karen. She picked up like she'd been waiting by the phone. I told her, 3 hours? Tyrants usually give you a day. She gets icy, tells me I'm adjacent, so I impact their community. My fence, my paint, my absence from her mixers. You sent a message, she says. The message is, I mind my own business. She hangs up on transition smoothly. That stuck in my head. I called the sheriff, laid out words like fraudulent notice and coercion. Dispatcher sounded half asleep, but logged the call. Not 30 minutes later, a utility van pulls up, 4 guys in Summit Hills vests, one filming, one with bolt cutters, one clipboard guy asking for me by name. We're here to supervise compliance, he says. They hand me a document, fake city letterhead, phony auction notice, all the trimmings. The formatting was just off enough for my old enforcement brain to start itching. I told them to wait, called the sheriff again. Deputies arrive, check the dock, check their lists, check my title. Nothing. No liens, no orders, nothing but Karen's hot air. The clipboard guy admits, Karen Grayson, our president, she consults with municipal partners. Deputy runs the numbers, gets nothing, tells the HOA crew to leave, and quietly tells me, this just became a criminal matter. By now, I realized this wasn't just busybodies with clipboards. This was full-contact property warfare. Less than a week later, flyers show up in every mailbox, my face dead center. Who is living among us? Accusations of instability, aggression, refusal to comply. No name on it, just the HOA logo. Same day, my internet goes down, then a camera feed gets cut. Someone had been on my property in the night. Wednesday, a compliance officer from the city turns up. Anonymous complaint says my land isn't zoned for residential use. I hand him every deed, certificate, and zoning map in my file cabinet. He leaves with nothing, but I can see the wheels turning. Someone's gaming the system. Then comes the next shot, a letter from the Department of Natural Resources investigating me for illegal deforestation. Attached, a grainy photo of someone cutting trees at 2 a.m. Not me, but good enough for a complaint. I'd filed restoration plans, had permits for every stick I touched, but suddenly, the city's treating me like I'm clear-cutting Yosemite. At this point, it clicked. Karen wasn't just filing complaints. She was editing the paperwork, manufacturing a paper trail. I pulled the file data, edited by her, timestamped before I even bought the place. She had access to the municipal portals and was rewriting history to make me the villain. I started documenting everything. Every camera angle, every letter, every time a neighbor filmed me walking to the mailbox. Neighbors turned cold, some even hostile. Someone posted my address on Nextdoor. Avoid this property if walking pets or with children, known for aggressive behavior. I didn't even own a dog. At my lowest point, I sat at my desk, surrounded by folders, emails, a wall of lies, and remembered something an old corrupt clerk in Nevada once told me. If you control the paperwork, you control the story. Karen wasn't a control freak. She was an author, rewriting the narrative, turning me from quiet neighbor into a threat. But see, here's the thing about paperwork. Bureaucracy leaves fingerprints. I dug into the zoning complaint, tracked the upload to the HOA's admin building. Same software, same user. I stripped data from the deforestation photo. GPS placed it 2 miles away in a public park. I sent everything to my attorney, a guy named Mitchell. He told me to keep collecting, don't go loud yet. Pile up the evidence. That's when the twist hit. Anonymous email, you're not crazy. Attached was a zip file, HOA minutes, budget reports, and a PowerPoint from a company called Elevate Land Holdings, a developer famous for swallowing neighborhoods whole. My property, big red circle, target parcel, plan, procedural displacement via HOA cooperation. Karen wasn't just power tripping. She was working with Elevate to get my land for their expansion, painting me as the problem so they could take what they wanted. Next morning, a man named Eric Taylor, HOA board member, shows up at my back door, nervous as a cat in a dog park. I didn't send a file, but I know who did. Karen's promised a job with Elevate if she delivers your land. She's lost the plot, man. Here's what I've got. He hands me a USB, emails, transfers minutes. Somebody's going to get hurt. Not her. I built a dossier big enough to crush a desk, then took it to the prosecutor's office myself. No email, no chance to intercept. Amanda Rivas, assistant DA, gave me a look that said she'd seen plenty, but not quite this. She promised a formal review. Meanwhile, I worked with Eric. He fed me recordings from a board meeting where Karen, clear as day, said, if we can't buy him out, we push him out, legally or not. A second tape had her talking about blighting my land so the city could seize it, all to help Elevate get their project moving. I looped in a journalist I trusted, Laura Keyes, who toppled city councils for less. She published the story hard. The fallout was instant. HOA Facebook page vanished. Residents started asking where their money was going, how much Karen was skimming for her crusade. Sheriff's office raided her house and HOA HQ. Found fake documents, shell company payments, even a forged covenant from the 80s that if it passed, would have handed them my land outright. Only it didn't match any official records. Karen tried to vanish, but her board ousted her, elected Eric acting president, and handed over every file they could find. A state investigation opened. The developer, Elevate, denied everything, claimed to be misled. Meanwhile, my inbox flooded, support, advice, other horror stories. Some neighbors apologized. One dropped off a pie. I left it for the raccoons. Finally, we went to court. Karen didn't show day one. Her lawyer did, full of talk about stress and community values. But the evidence rolled in. Fake PDFs, wire transfers, emails, that audio. Jury didn't buy a word of her story. Eric testified. So did I. It wasn't dramatic, just the truth, told straight, every ugly bit. The verdict, guilty. Karen got 7 years, no parole before 4, restitution to the HOA, and to me, $850,000 civil and criminal. The developer's project tanked. HOA came under state oversight, and Eric became president, at least for a while. Karen's house foreclosed. Movers packed up her life while a bailiff watched. Weeks later, the county sent me a signed resolution. My land, by law, outside HOA jurisdiction, forever. I framed it by the front door. For anyone thinking of trying again. Sometimes at sunset, Eric drops by. We sit on the porch, watch the trees sway, don't say much. He once said, "She fooled us." I told him, "You did the right thing." That's more than most. The neighborhood changed. Less policing, more privacy. People mind their business. And me? I finally got my peace. Not because I hid from a fight, but because I knew when someone tries to rewrite your story, you don't hand them the pen. So yeah, I learned something. Justice doesn't always roar in on a white horse. Sometimes it comes buried in paperwork and backup drives, in the quiet stubbornness of not giving up what's yours, even when everyone around you says you should. You never really know how strong you are or how rotten things can get until somebody tries to take what you've earned. But let me tell you, karma's real. And sometimes it's got a badge and a subpoena. But let me ask you, where's the line between defending your turf and becoming the very monster you're fighting? Who really gets to decide what community means? Is justice just payback, or is it setting the record straight for good? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop your stories about neighborhood drama, HOA's gone rogue, or what you think justice really looks like down in the comments. Maybe next time, it won't be my story we're telling.